A little more than 6 years ago, I started to notice a trend with at least half of my female clients. When they would come in for their appointment to get their hair done, they started to casually mention that they felt like they were losing their hair. They would say things like, "Girl, I swear I'm going bald. I can't wear my hair down. It's so thin. I lose so much hair when I shampoo. I lose so much hair when I brush my hair at night. I swear I can see my scalp more than ever. Will you look at my hair? Will you feel my hair? Does it feel thinner?" And after hearing this time after time from so many clients, I came to a few really important realizations. The first realization was that we as stylists or barbers are one of the first professionals that someone will come to with questions or concerns about hair loss or hair growth. And there's actually a statistic on this. 80% of people that are dealing with hair loss will go to their stylist or their barber first. Now, I know we are not doctors. I know we cannot diagnose people. I know we cannot prescribe. But this led me to my second realization, which was I did not know as much as I thought I did when it came to hair loss. And I took pride in what I did know about the hair, how it grew, the follicle, the scalp, the acid mantle, the pH of hair and skin, the molecular weight of products, all of it. But as clients were asking these questions, there were so many that my response was, "Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what could be going on." The third thing that I realized was I wanted to become more of a reference or a resource for my clients. I wanted to help give them answers to their questions. I wanted to create more of a dialogue of what was going on with them personally, give them questions or talking points that they could talk to their doctor about to help them get an actual diagnosis of what was going on, help them get to the bottom of why they were losing their hair. And the fourth thing that I realized, and this to me was the most powerful realization, this was becoming a trend among women. This was no longer something that just men are struggling with. Now, 80% of men will deal with some type of hair loss in their lifetime. 50% of women will deal with hair loss in their lifetime. I personally think that number is higher. Welcome to Hair Loss with Melissa Anger. I am your host, Melissa. Let's get angry about hair loss. Thank you for joining me. I am so excited about this podcast. This is something that I have wanted to do for quite some time. I am a hair loss practitioner and a stylist that has been in the industry for more than 23 years. And for the last 2 years, I've been posting videos about everything related to hair loss on different social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm excited to be able to go more in depth when it comes to everything related to hair loss and to break this up into smaller podcasts that everyone has access to. Looking back on that first little while that I started to notice this more and more with clients, I have one major regret, and that is that I wasn't more receptive to what they were saying. At that point, I had not experienced hair loss myself, so I truly did not feel everything that they were going through on a personal level. It wasn't until about a year into this that I started to lose my hair myself. It was shortly after the birth of my youngest child, a few weeks to be exact. I started to notice I was losing handfuls of hair in the shower. My hair was everywhere. It was all over my clothes, all over my car, all over my furniture. It was in my vacuum. My husband started to mention that my hair was in his clothes because of the laundry. My hairs would tickle his back in his shirts at work. So I made an appointment with my doctor and told him, "Look, I am losing my hair. I have enough energy to sit on the couch and blink my eyes. I know that you are going to say that this is because I just had a baby. But this was my third child. This is not my first rodeo. Yes, I experienced hair loss with each of my pregnancies, but not this quickly and not this severe. And yes, new moms are tired, but not like this. So I want to do blood work. Something is wrong. And I was blessed with a fantastic doctor who said, you know your body better than I do. Let's do blood work and see if there's anything going on. So I had blood work done. He called a couple of days later and said, yes, sure enough, your TSH is very high. This is an indicator that your thyroid is not functioning properly. Let's have you come back into the office and let's get a game plan going for how we're going to treat this. And this initial process took quite some time. I started on a low dose of medication. I had to wait about 2 months, go have blood work redone, recheck my levels. And we did this for probably 9 months, maybe a year. And in this time, I did a small amount of research. I was still researching hair loss. I hadn't yet made any kind of connection. But around this time, I was having issues with both of my breasts. I had developed cysts in both of my breasts. So I made an appointment with my OBGYN to go have an exam. When I was at this appointment, I thought, it couldn't hurt to get a second opinion. My OBGYN had been practicing medicine for so long, more than 25 years. I valued and respected everything he had to say. I had been seeing him for at least 10 years. He had delivered all of my children. So we were just about done with my appointment, and I remember saying, hey, while I have you, can I get your opinion on hypothyroidism? This is something that I was recently diagnosed with. It's something that I am currently working on pretty consistently. Have you seen success in patients with certain things? Have you seen other things that maybe haven't been as successful? Are there supplements that you would recommend that you can take with your medication? I would love your opinion on this, any information that you can give me. And maybe I wasn't as clear as I needed to be with what I was asking him, because his response was, well, what do you mean when it comes to losing weight? And I thought, well, no, I meant everything, but yeah, we can start with weight. Oh yeah, okay, what do you have for me on how you can lose weight when you're dealing with hypothyroidism? And his response was, I have found that people are most successful when they're trying to lose weight when they put the spoon down. If I could have been a fly on the wall to see the look on my face, I instantly was filled with rage and disgust and disappointment. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get dressed. You can go. I think we're done here. I left his office. That was the last time that I saw him. He has since retired. I was so disappointed that this was the first thing that had come out of his mouth. As I was making my way to my car, I thought, man, how many times has somebody come to him with legitimate questions and that has been the answer that they're given? A quick, ridiculous answer to where a person feels brushed off. And as I made it to my car, all of these emotions that I was feeling quickly turned into just pure anger. I felt more disappointed about what was going on than before I did going into my appointment. My opinion of him as a doctor quickly changed. I thought, man, this man needs to retire. He has lost his passion for what he is doing. That's not helpful. And for the first time, even though I had a fantastic primary care physician that I was working with, I felt as though I had hit a dead end. And that's a very powerful feeling, isn't it? When you are struggling with something, you seek help for it, you don't get help, and you've reached this point of it's hopeless. Then I don't know. I'm stuck at a dead end. I don't know where to go from here. It's absolutely depressing. And as I was driving home and I sat on all of this, I had the radio off. My brain was going a million miles an hour. I had this connection between clients that had been coming in for quite some time, feeling all of these feelings, frustrated, sad, disappointed. When it came to their hair loss, they had made appointments, they had visited their doctor and had this same experience. And I think this was the first time that I really could relate to clients in feeling that hopelessness, that disappointment, that sadness, that feeling of, I don't know where to go from here. And by the time I made it home, this feeling of anger turned into a determination, motivation. I got home, and that evening I thought, you know what? I am becoming my own advocate then. I will do this myself. I am going to research everything I possibly can about hypothyroidism. What lifestyle changes can I be making? What supplements are helpful? What dietary changes can I be making? What can I be doing to help my thyroid function along with the medication that I was taking? So the next night, I started researching everything. Different vitamin deficiencies that were common in people that had hypothyroidism. What foods were rich in those vitamins and minerals? What hormonal imbalances will play a role in how my thyroid is functioning? What lifestyle changes I can make to improve how my thyroid functions? And after so long, all of these light bulbs started to go off because I began to realize that all of these things, a hormonal imbalance, lifestyle, stress, vitamin deficiencies, they were connected to how the thyroid functioned, but they were each their own separate issue. And each of these had a list of symptoms, and every one had hair loss as a symptom. So I began this process of taking notes, making lists of questions, and anytime I saw my doctor, my primary care physician, whether I was taking my kids in for an appointment or it was me going in and he would say, do you have anything else for me while I'm here? I would say, yes, hold on. I have this list of questions in regards to hair loss. Let me get your opinion. Let me pick your brain on these. And eventually I got to the point where I would just make an appointment to go in and pick his brain about hair loss, about supplements, about medications. I said, I don't care how you bill me for this, but I just want your time. I want your view on this, your knowledge, your brain. I want to understand everything that you know about all of these questions or all of these subjects that I have for you. Each time I learned something new or figured something out, I would take this back to my clients, and the dialogue that we were able to have, the conversations that we were having were growing and building in momentum. I had so many clients that would visit their doctor with all of this new information that we had talked about at their appointment, and some were starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. They were starting to get answers to questions that had never been answered before. This was so exciting to have clients come in and say, oh my gosh, before we even get started on my consultation, I have to tell you, I went and saw my doctor like you suggested. We did blood work. It was my thyroid, or I had certain vitamin deficiencies, or I had a hormonal imbalance. This is what my doctor recommended that I do, and I'm starting to see a difference. But I still had clients that would do this same process. They would go to their doctor, they would have blood work done, they would ask certain questions, and they were not successful in their hair loss getting better or starting to regrow hair. But I had one client in particular that came in and said, that was the quickest appointment I have ever had. I sat down with the doctor. He looked at my head and said, oh yes, this is alopecia. This is what I would recommend. And he was gone. He was in and out less than 10 minutes. And I thought, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's figure this out. So as I started researching alopecia, I had this moment of, well, wait a minute. Alopecia is an umbrella term for hair loss. Of course, she would be diagnosed with alopecia. That was her biggest complaint. She was losing her hair. She's having hair loss. Yes, that's alopecia. Now, sometimes when people are diagnosed with alopecia, their doctor is actually referring to alopecia areata, but she was not experiencing patches of hair loss on the back of her head, around the back of her hairline. It did not fall into that category of that's probably alopecia areata. And as I became a hair loss practitioner and I started doing consultations with clients, I came to realize that this happens all the time. People are diagnosed with just simply alopecia. They don't ever find out for sure what type of hair loss they're experiencing. So even though this is the very basic common sense step, this is the first place that you need to start when determining what's going on with your hair loss. What type of alopecia do you have? So there is diffuse alopecia. This is commonly diagnosed as telogen effluvium, but there are two different types of effluvium, telogen effluvium and anagen effluvium. So the actual term is diffuse alopecia. Next, we have androgenetic hair loss. This can be diagnosed as androgenic hair loss, female pattern baldness, genetic hair loss, male pattern baldness, AGA. They are all the same thing, androgenetic alopecia. Next, we have scarring alopecias. Now, the most common is lichen planipilaris or frontal fibrosing alopecia. Next, we have traction alopecia. Next, we have alopecia areata. Think area, patches. And there are subcategories of alopecia areata. There's alopecia totalis. This is all of the hair all over your head. And then we have alopecia universalis. This is all of the hair all over your body. And these three are considered an autoimmune condition. Next, we have traction alopecia. And then finally, we have trichotillomania. Now, some people will categorize trichotillomania with scarring alopecias. I'm going to put it in its own category because it's not talked about enough. And I want to start more of an in-depth conversation about trichotillomania. So I'm putting it in its own category. Some of these types of hair loss can be somewhat diagnosed just from looking at the head. But in order to have a very accurate diagnosis, you have to have blood work done with your doctor. You can order blood work yourself. So if you go in to have blood work with your doctor and your doctor says, no, I'm not going to check these specific things, or insurance will not cover these specific tests because hair loss is not enough of a symptom to justify running these specific tests, you can order blood work yourself. My link tree that is in my TikTok, it's on my Instagram, there is a button you can click on to order your own blood work online. They send you an order for your blood work. You go to a local lab, you get your results 3 to 5 days later. So get a pen and paper out. Here is the list of blood work that I suggest clients have done with their doctor or they order it themselves. First is a full thyroid panel. It is not sufficient enough to just check TSH. You have to look at how the thyroid is producing T4. You have to look and see if T4 is being converted into T3 in the liver. So what is your TSH? What is your T4? What is your T3? And you need to check for antibodies. Oftentimes, a thyroid issue can be connected to an autoimmune condition like Graves or Hashimoto's. So you have to do a full thyroid panel. Unfortunately, a lot of times I see doctors will do everything but antibodies. If it is a thyroid issue specifically, they want to check these things. Let's see how it goes. If we're not getting answers, then we can go back in and have antibodies tested. But just be aware that usually having antibodies checked is one of the things that they are hesitant on. Next, you're going to check for specific vitamin deficiencies. So folate, B12, vitamin D, ferritin, which is your iron storage, and magnesium. If you're deficient in B12 or folate, this over time can lead to iron anemia. So these two are very important. Vitamin D and magnesium are really connected to one another. If you are consistently deficient in vitamin D, there's a good chance that you don't have enough magnesium. So that's a big one to check as well, your magnesium. Now, iron and saturation are very important, but I have found that low ferritin is more connected to hair loss. So you can have somebody that their iron looks good, their saturation looks good, but their ferritin is low. So ferritin is the big one that you want to have checked. Next, you're going to check hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and free testosterone. Progesterone acts as a referee between estrogen and testosterone. So it's pretty common for people to see a dip in progesterone, and it's not that they have high estrogen or high testosterone or high free testosterone. There's just more of a presence that is causing an issue because their progesterone is low. Other hormones you're going to check is dihydrotestosterone. This is DHT. This is a more concentrated form of testosterone. DHEA and cortisol. DHEA and cortisol are both good indicators that there is an issue going on with your adrenal glands. If you are having cortisol checked in your blood work, you need to have your first blood draw before 9 a.m. and you need to be fasting. It's more accurate to have a morning blood draw and an afternoon blood draw when it comes to cortisol. We want to see what your cortisol is doing in the morning, and then is it higher in the afternoon or is it tapering off like it normally should? The later in the afternoon or evening that you can have it done, the better. So if your lab closes at 5 and they can do your second blood draw at 4:30, perfect. It can be beneficial to look at your LDL, your bad cholesterol, and then your total cholesterol. Now, this can commonly be already checked in your blood work, but it's always a good one to make sure. Can we look at my LDL? And last, we have fasting insulin. And again, you have to be fasting and you need to have your first blood draw before 9 a.m. A very common thing that I hear in consultations, people that message me or send me an email, is I had blood work done and everything was normal. And I think it's important to remember this. Hair loss is a symptom. It does not randomly happen. It is a sign that your body is giving you that something is off internally. 95% of hair loss is being caused by something being off internally. So either something was not checked in your blood work or levels that are considered normal by the lab standard where you have your blood drawn in comparison to what a trichologist considers to be normal in relation to hair loss can be completely different. So while certain vitamin levels like vitamin D and ferritin and magnesium can be in the normal range, if they are below a certain amount, according to a trichologist and a lot of functional medicine doctors, they're still considered low. And as crazy as it seems, something as simple as a vitamin deficiency can continuously cause hair loss until that deficiency is resolved. So when you're given a diagnosis of, ooh, your vitamin D is a little bit low, that's about it. It's no big deal. Just take a vitamin D. This will absolutely cause hair loss if your vitamin D is low. It will affect the way that your hair then begins to regrow once it has entered the growing phase again. One of the biggest goals that I have now when working with clients and their hair loss specifically is we're going to do this right. We are going to build a strong foundation. We're not going to skip steps. We are going to get a true understanding of what is related to what is going on in your body. How does your body work? How do organ systems work in relation to things that can potentially cause hair loss? My goal for this podcast is to start an in-depth conversation about every possible thing related to hair loss. Let's understand the body. Let's understand how different organ systems work. Let's understand how our hair receives nutrients, what those nutrients do for the hair. Let's understand how lifestyle affects our hair. Let's understand everything so that you can better navigate through your own personal experience with hair loss. Let's go over possible root causes. Let's give you talking points and questions that you can take to your doctor. Let's establish a good working relationship between you and your doctor so that things can be improved long term rather than just putting a Band-Aid over what's happening right now. I want to be a resource for you. So as you are dealing with hair loss, it simply is just a bump in the road for you and not a dead end.